meaning to it, but Bathsheba could also mean daughter of the seven gods or goddesses, and that she, her husband was not an Israelite, and she was probably not an Israelite either. He was somebody who lived in the land, who was loyal to King David. He fought in his army, but he's not considered an Israelite. He wasn't a Jew, basically, and she probably wasn't. Or maybe she was. I mean, the rabbis go back and forth, and I'll show you why maybe she was or maybe she wasn't. But Jonathan Kirsch says she could have been one of these, women from a Canaanite woman. So let's just look at the text. I'm gonna share where we go. Share screen. David of Bathsheba, share. And hold on. We're going to read it and we're going to really look at it. Hold on, let me get to the top of it. Oh, here's a picture of her by Rembrandt that I thought was cool, is her bathing, because he sees her on the roof when she's bathing. Oh, and he even adds King David's letter, like he sent her this letter to come and see him. I don't remember him writing her. I think they just sent her, but she's reading it naked. I also love that I love her body. It's like a real woman's body. It's not some skinny model's body. This was considered beautiful, this kind of a body, very soft and, lush. Okay, so this is in the book of Samuel, book 2, chapter 11. Okay, so let's just start. Bonnie, I'm going to make it bigger now because
Thank you. I was going to ask you if you could make it bigger.
Yeah, hold on. I'll just do it till here for now. And let's see, home to size.
We all have to note that this is talked about in the song Hallelujah.
Oh, that's right.
David sees her bathe.
What is the word? What are the words again?
Oh, I don't remember exactly, but he sees her bathing, and then I don't know. I could look it up while we're.
It's okay. I'm sorry about my phone. It'll stop. David sees her bathing and says, "Hallelujah."
But then she ties him to the chair, which I don't understand.
That's not from this. Okay. So, all right. So, Bonnie, can you read? Is it big enough?
I think so. So, in the spring, at the time when kings go off to war, David sent Joab out with the king's men and the whole Israelite army. They destroyed the Ammonites and besieged Rabbah, but David remained in Jerusalem.
Okay, so it's spring. It's like when, it's interesting. You stay home during the winter and then you go off to fight in the spring and summer and fall, and then you come back, and regroup. So he sent, it's like what they do. They just go and fight each other. It's really pathetic, honestly. And they are fighting this other tribe, the Ammonites, who are probably trying to destroy them. It's a neighboring tribe. We know Ammon was one of the, it's a tribe descended from Lot and his daughters. Do we know the story about Lot and his daughters? Do I need to tell that story? So that's really interesting. Lot was Abraham's nephew, and he lived in Sodom and Gomorrah. And you know the story of how the angels came and warned him to leave, or else, because the city's going to be destroyed. Actually, before that, these angels who looked like people were staying in Lot's house, and the Sodomites, this is why it's called sodomy, came to his door and said, "Give us these men to have sex with them." Oh. This is Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodomy is anal sex, basically. And Lot says, "No, I won't give you them, but you can have my 2 daughters." Jesus. So, but they don't take them. And then they all leave. And of course, they're told, don't look back. And we know, the story, Lot's wife looks back and she's turned into a pillar of salt. This is in the Torah. And then it's a question of why salt, many things, that she was crying because it was being destroyed, or sympathetically, one Midrash says she was looking back because she still had married daughters back there. Others say because salt was a really a rare and expensive commodity, you know, to season food, and she wouldn't share it, or she hoarded salt. There's a lot of reasons, but it's just a weird thing. She was turned into a pillar of salt. But here's the other part. Lot and his two daughters they escape somewhere, and they see the destruction, or they hear about it. And the two sisters basically think they're the only human beings left alive, that the rest of the world is gone. That's, you know, their limit is like their region. They don't fathom that there are people somewhere else. And so they say, in order to preserve the human race, we have to have sex with our father, and in order to each get pregnant. And that's what they did. And one of their sons was Ammon. So this is the Ammonites. Was from this Ammon, or Ammon was one of their sons. So it's kind of a tainted bloodline, we could say, about this enemy of Israel. So I just wanted to tell you that as a backstory. Okay, so here comes the story, and it's very, very sort of bare bones, the way it talks about it. Wait, I'm trying to look where I can. Okay. Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry. This thing is not easy. Hold back. Way up. Okay. No, this is, sorry, keep going. This is that's part 2, when David's old. Okay. This is when he's young and vigorous, and we know, he's king now. He's danced in the streets. He's gotten rid of Michal because she made fun of him. We read about her when he was dancing and flapping his genitals around and all that stuff, as we recall. And he said, "I'd rather all the girls see me.
So
I
what
don't
did you
care."
do today? We studied Torah.
That's right. Okay, continue, Bonnie.
Okay. One evening, David got up from his bed and walked around on the roof of the palace. From the roof, he saw a woman bathing. The woman was very beautiful, and David sent someone to find out about her. The man said, "She is Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam and the wife of Uriah." Is that it?
Yeah.
Uriah, the Hittite. Then David sent messengers to get her. She came to him, and he slept with her. Now she was purifying herself from her monthly uncleanliness. Then she went back home. The woman conceived and sent word to David saying, "I am pregnant."
Okay, so let's just look at this for a minute. So it's interesting because Jonathan Kirsch says David was a very sexual man. He had just been sleeping. He woke up, and in Jonathan Kirsch's imagination, David was feeling horny. And he was looking around for a girl, and he could have sent for any of his wives or whatever, but he goes on the roof and he sees this woman, and she's bathing naked. So now it's interesting that there's a suggestion that she was pagan, because did pagan women go to the mikveh or bathe after their periods? You know what I mean? Because that's a very Jewish thing, this idea of cleanliness, that you abstain for 2 weeks, and then you bathe, or you go in a mikveh, and then you have relations. So I have to wonder, if Bathsheba wasn't a Hebrew, why would she be following this custom of doing that, unless it was a custom of the ancient world that we don't know about? But we do know in Judaism, you get, from the first day you get your period, you do not have sex with your husband. And usually this is like, the whole time you're bleeding, and then you wait another 7 days. Usually it's a week, and then another week. So it's usually 14 days. Then you go and you bathe, or you do, you go to the mikvah or whatever. And then my niece, who's ultra Orthodox, does that to this day. She does that. And she has her period, and you're not even allowed to touch. You're not allowed to sleep in the same bed when you have your period. So she sleeps in a separate bed from her husband. Okay, but knowing as women our fertility cycle, what is the 14th day and 15th day of our cycle?
When you ovulate.
Exactly. So that she got pregnant is no surprise, because it was in the height of her cycle. The other thing the rabbis say, I love the rabbis, because they always want to defend King David, and they always have these interesting explanations. So one of their explanations is that all soldiers divorced their wives before they went to war. And I don't know if that's true or that happened, but in order that if they died in battle or disappeared, the women would be, they wouldn't be hanging and called an aguna, a chained woman, where you don't know if he's alive, you don't know if you're free, you don't know anything. So the rabbis say, well, she was divorced, so he wasn't committing adultery. They also say that they were beshert and they were supposed to be together. And this was the fulfillment of that. Then there's another midrash that says, actually, Bathsheba was, because they want to make her also holy, if they can, that she was a very modest woman. And I just read this, she put up a screen in front of her, but Satan appeared as a bird on the screen, and King David, who loves to hunt, shot with his arrow and knocked over the screen and saw her. And then his lust was inflamed. So they try to say what, and he always felt guilty. So they give all these ideas. But the other thing is the king sees a beautiful woman, and I'm going to show you the text again. He says, bring her to me. Mm-hmm. There's no asking her, there's no question that she had to go to him. There's no, nothing. She goes and they have sex. So then there's now Jonathan Kirsch and others say, okay, so let's pull back. She knows she's in view of the palace. Did she do it on purpose? Did she want the king to see her? I mean, his reputation was pretty well known. We know this guy was a horn dog, basically, as they would say in the old days, in the 60s. He loved sex with beautiful women, and here she is naked. So was she doing it on purpose? Because there's it's very, very like just the facts. There's no information. And oftentimes we do hear an inner life. We do hear their thoughts, but there's no thoughts here. So any thoughts about that? Rebecca? As soon as yeah.
Well, that's my question. Why was she on the roof bathing? Why was there a bathtub or some kind of a tub on the roof? That's a lot of water that's
up on the roof.
Right. Yeah, that's a good. Well, let's assume it was spring. Maybe it was hot.
Sunbathing.
Maybe. What did you say?
Sunbathing, not bathing in a tub.
Well, yeah, that's true. So maybe that's a good question. And here's the other question that's a good point. All water had to be schlepped, from a well. So why would you schlep it all the way to the roof? Unless she had servants or whatever. I mean, you're right. Why was she bathing on the roof? Yeah, Stacy.
Yeah. I don't know if this is just trying to look at something in more current eyes, but the women didn't have any agency. What if they didn't want to have, it was kind of like, that's what he wanted. What if she didn't want to do it, but she didn't have any say in having sex with him, and she's already married, and
she didn't have any sex. She didn't have any say. It's like, bring her to me. They take her. And we see this a lot where they just take women in war and whatever. They take the women, and it's just this idea that a woman and a king can really have anyone. Now, one commentary compares Bathsheba to Abigail, who we read about. Now, when he kind of threatened raping her, what did Abigail do? Do you remember? Anybody remember what she did?
Well, she didn't have sex with him. She waited.
She waited, but what did she say to him also? She said, oh, you are going to be king and you're so great and you don't want to be a sinner. You don't want to be a sinner. You don't want to do the wrong thing because you're the anointed one. And she kind of talked him out of it by flattering him and saying, oh, king, you don't want to have this on your conscience, that you killed, that you raped. You don't want to do this. And he's actually said, remember, thank you for stopping me. He said that to her. Thank you for stopping me. But of course, she was probably a lot older. Though we don't ever hear about their children. Bathsheba doesn't seem to have had any children. So how old could she have been? You know, how long had she been married? Maybe she was 26, 18. We don't know. She was probably young because, and girls then actually married at 14. I'm not saying she was 14, but so we have no idea her age, but she didn't have any guile unless we are saying that she wanted to show off her body. Even if she did want to show off her body, that doesn't mean that she wanted to be forced to have sex with the king. You think she could have said no?
Well, I want to defend Bathsheba and then also the interpretation of it. To always say that women didn't have any agency. I get it in warfare because there are other rules of warfare. But if you started with Rembrandt's portrait of Bathsheba, and I came in not in the very beginning, but I think he has a beautiful, besides the fact that she's plump, which was a sign of, by the way, not only beauty, but also of estrogen, because fat carries estrogen cells.
No, that's a good thing to know about.
This was the first nude portrait in our history called a thinking Bathsheba. And she's contemplating whether to go or not. And in this case, she has an invitation, a letter, which you said he had people go and bring her.
Well, it's not in the text that she had a letter.
That's correct. It's not in the text that the model for Bathsheba should be his illegitimate wife, his housekeeper, who was then pregnant with his baby. So that portrait has a lot of resonance to it, and she would have been condemned by the church. But I think what it does show is there is some agency, and also shows the thinking of it, whether she should go to the king. Her husband was away at war. She didn't know whether he'd come back, and not being an agonut. And there was something attractive about it. He was king. He was good looking. He was virile. He was, sexy. I mean, what's not to like? And we don't know what Uriah the Hittite was like. I mean, he was loyal to the king, but he could also have been super loyal. So, and didn't want to sleep with him when he came back. So I think we have to grant her some thought and some agency, that she wasn't just a pawn, like a sex slave.
I think you're right. And I think if you think about all the women who slept with John Kennedy, because he was, president, but he was so charismatic, so, handsome or whatever. And those like, oh my God, I get to sleep with John Kennedy.
Right.
What I mean? So it could be that too. That's a very interesting point of view. And you're right. The fact that he didn't rush to sleep with his wife, Uriah, they might have had, we're just looking at it pretty, who knows? She probably didn't choose her husband.
Right.
Women didn't. So she was given to him. So that doesn't mean that she loved him. And he didn't even go say hi to her. He didn't even knock on the door and say, I'm here, darling. I'm not sleeping with you, but hello. He just stayed in the king's courtyard and never even went to see her. So that's very interesting. I like that. Cindy.
I'm just thinking of David and the 10 Commandments. I mean, first of all, committing adultery, coveting his neighbor's wife,
Right.
and that fine line between killing and murder, because he certainly does a lot of killing in his day.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And it's so interesting that this is another thing Jonathan Kirsch said. They had to write about it in the biography, his biographers, because everybody knew about it. So it wasn't like they could leave it out, because people would say, people knew about this story. And so they put it in there. But you're right, he's not coming off very well in terms of all the things that all the commandments, and he's supposed to be there's one prophet. Samuel's no longer there. It seems once Samuel leaves, everything falls apart.
I love you, Rabbi. You're so cool.
The Nathan, there's a guy, Nathan, he comes, but he's we just hear from him a little bit. Oh, we hear from him later also. Okay, yeah. Donna, did you want to say something on?
I wanted to ask a question about the way women are, can be used as pawns in this day with the wars and things going on. Pray for me. That's all I gotta say.
I think you're right. Even to this day, rape is part of aggressive warfare on women. And I know the Russians have been raping
Horrible.
Ukrainian women, so it's unbelievable that there's still this idea that I insult a man by raping, assaulting a woman or his women or whatever. It's horrible. Okay, let's continue. So she's pregnant and okay. So then what does David do? Oh, what happened? What was this? Wait. Oh no. Oh, okay. Never mind. Okay, wait, cancel. What is this? All right. What happened? Just
There it is.
I have this thing in front of it now. I don't know how to get rid of it. Hannah, do you know how to do this? Wait, let me try this. Okay. All right. So David, he sends him word and he says, okay, he doesn't even see her. He doesn't say anything to her. And he sends word to Joab, who's his general. Okay, so Stacy, why don't you read?
So David sent this word to Joab, send me Uriah the Hittite. And Job sent him to David. When Uriah came to him, David asked him how Job was, how the soldiers were, and how the war was going.
Okay, so it's like chit chat. So how's the war? What's going on with the war? Blah, blah, blah. Let's, how you doing? Like, I'm sure Uriah would like, why is the king sending for me? This is weird. It's like, you're a foot soldier, you're a soldier and you hear, President Biden, President Kennedy, that go see him. And it's like, uh-oh, what did I do? You know what I mean? But he just comes and he makes idle conversation with him. Then continue.
Then David said to Uriah, go down to your house and wash your feet. So Uriah left the palace, and a gift from the king was sent after him. But Uriah slept at the entrance to the palace with all his master's servants and did not go down to his house.
Okay, so Susan Ehrlich, what does wash your feet mean? Do you know?
In your genitals.
It doesn't just mean wash them, it means go have sex.
Right.
And you have that story in the book of Ruth. When in the book of Ruth, when somebody has like a radio on or something or a TV or something.
Just let me get him today.
Hannah, mute. Hannah, Hannah.
You can pick him up tomorrow, take him Friday.
Mute her. I muted her. Oh, I could mute. Oh, I didn't even know I could do that. Okay. When Naomi sends sends Ruth to Boaz during the harvest, she says, uncover his feet or lie at his feet. And feet is a code word for genitals and sex. And so when he says, go and wash your feet, he's saying, go and have sex with your wife is what he's really saying. It's not just go take a bath. So that's what he's saying. And what did he do? He didn't go home. Share.
Yeah, he slept at the palace, for goodness sake. The king gave him instructions to go have sex, go home, and so many said, no, I'm gonna go sleep at the palace. So
and did not go down to his house. So there's two things that we now can think about, which is, how do I do this to go down?
and then also Bathsheba wasn't on the roof. David was on the roof.
He was on her roof too.
He doesn't say that there. It says David was on the roof, and then he looked and saw.
He saw a woman bathing. Oh, you're right.
So
We
he
assume
could be
she was on
looking
the
down and seeing the whole thing. That solves the problem of getting.
Maybe she
water
was in her
roof.
house. And
He
the
was on
window
everybody's
open.
roof.
And the woman and the window was open, like French
God.
doors or something on the top. You're right. Very smart. I didn't even see that. Okay. So he doesn't go see his wife, which shows you they didn't have the best relationship, I don't think. And he sleeps He did not go down to the house. Now, why didn't he go down? Why did David send him to his house? What was he hoping?
That he'd have sex with his wife so that if she became pregnant, that it would be identified with Uriah.
His child, yeah.
Okay. So, okay, continue just a little more. Who's reading? Stacy? Yeah.
David was told Uriah did not go home. So he asked Uriah, haven't you just come from a military campaign? Why didn't you go home? Uriah said to David, the ark and Israel and Judah are staying in tents, and my commander Joab and my Lord's men are camped in the open country. How could I go to my house to eat and drink and make love to my wife? As surely as you live, I will not do such a thing.
So what do we think about Uriah? What do we think about him? Like, is he
was loyal.
It reminds me of John McCain, who wouldn't leave the prisoner camp if the other prisoners didn't leave, that he didn't want comfort if his co-mates couldn't have comfort.
okay? Right, he's very pure. He's a pure guy, and you know, I just want to refer to what Susan says, Susan Ehrlich, about like this very pure, good, upstanding guy versus this sexy, charismatic, wealthy, you know, bad boy, you know, and she's married to, and he sounds young. Doesn't Uriah sound young? It's a very like pure, like a 21-year-old kind of thing, you know, yes, sir, no, sir, I'm very, and so it's interesting that he's held up as the model, you know, as opposed to David in the story.
Did he know
And
that his wife slept with David, or he did not know that at this time?
he had no idea. No idea. David was hoping that he would sleep with his wife, so then when she could say, I'm pregnant, and then they could say, oh, it's from Uriah. But they,
I like high fidelity, no infidelity, no infidelity.
Nina,
I think that he maybe had a very low sex drive. That he
Uriah.
wasn't interested exactly.
I think you're right.
Yes,
Because, you know, why wouldn't he? And he didn't even go and say hello. He
right.
didn't even say, give her a hug. Nothing.
Yeah. He may have even liked the men better than the wife.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's
Yeah.
too.
Could have been gay.
That's very interesting.
He's
Okay,
on the other team.
right. Well, if that were the case, you could see why Bathsheba would have said,
Exactly.
finally. We don't know. We don't know. I think that's very interesting. That's great. Yeah. Okay. So,
I was gonna say that too. Plus, they usually say after war, men get, during war, they get horny. This guy was not, you know, and he was avoiding his wife, if anything, like.
And they said that he slept among the men.
Yes.
you're right.
Thank you, Panina.
That's right. It says here, he did not go down and slept at the entrance with all his master's servants. Right, with all the men.
Mm-hmm,
My God.
mm-hmm.
Okay, so, okay, Susan, why don't you read?
Okay, and then this gives more reason for Bathsheba.
Mhm.
Okay,
Yes.
then David said to him, stay here one more day, and we don't know what Uriah looked like either.
Right.
Then David said to him, stay here one more day, and tomorrow I will send you back. So Uriah remained in Jerusalem that day and the next. He didn't say he saw his wife. At David's invitation, he ate and drank with him, and David made him drunk. But in the evening, Uriah went out to sleep on his mat among his master's servants, and he didn't go home.
He likes those servants. That's what we're suddenly looking at.
Yeah, more men. In the morning, David
You
wrote,
have one day and you spend it with the guys. You have one day and you spend it with the guys.
yeah.
You're right. You're right. Go
In the
ahead.
morning, David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it with Uriah. In it, he wrote, put Uriah out in front where the fighting is fiercest, then withdraw for him so he will be struck down and die.
So it's so terrible. This is really unforgivable because he couldn't trick him into sleeping with his wife. He says, put him in the front line and he's going to get killed.
Yep.
It's, I can't defend it. It's just kind of heartbreaking that David, and again, I guess they had to write it because I admire the biographer or the person writing the story because he doesn't hold back on anything. And because of this, David suffers terrible repercussions. And that's also part of the story. And I think I shared with you that in rabbinical school, I had a really brilliant professor, and he knew everything about biblical history and whatever. And he said that the story of David was actually a handbook for young princes of how to be and how not to be a ruler, and to see the mistakes of David and to say, you see what happens when you are self-serving or this or that, disaster strikes. So he said it was something that the young princes after this studied and read and learned from.
That's good.
I thought that was very interesting.
That's
Okay.
good. They learn to do what's right.
Well, exactly. Okay, so a couple more, Susan.
In the morning, in front line. So while Joab had the city under siege, he put Uriah at a place where he knew the strongest defenders were. When the men of the city came out and fought against Joab, some of the men in David's army fell. Moreover, Uriah the Hittite died.
Okay, so I just want to point something out interesting. Joab doesn't question this at all. He just does it. So, it's not like he was shocked. It's not like he said, what? How can I do this? What are you asking me? I sometimes think about, I don't know, Secret Service, CIA, all these dark ops or whatever, where you have these men who are loyal to a fault and they'll do whatever their commander says and they don't question it. So Yoav did it. He said, okay, you want me to kill him? I'll kill him. No questions asked. Donna, did you have a question?
I was just going to say, I'm writing Mr. Bryden today on another letter, but thank you for saying what you said. I just love this class.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
I was going to say that I do think that soldiers follow the rule. I mean, if the captain says go out and fight and they do it. They don't question. That's part of their job.
That's right.
They don't have any say so in the matter. He couldn't say, I'm not going to do it. I mean, he just couldn't do that.
Oh, of course that Uriah had to do it, but when he said put him in the front line and make sure he's dead, obviously there's a collusion here between Yoav and David. Penina.
That's exactly what Samuel warned the people when they said that they want king. He said, you don't know what you're asking for. While they had the autocracy, apparently there were guidelines that they followed that they were different, more justice. But when they wanted a king, he told them, why you want a king? You don't know what you're asking for. You're going to be sorry. Because that's exactly why he warned them for things
That's
like
right. And he said he'll take your sons and he'll conscript your sons.
It's exactly what he said it's going to happen. He warned them and they wanted one anyhow. So first they got a Meshuggah one, and now they got a womanizer and a fighter.
You're funny.
That's right. You're right. Okay. So now I love the way Yoav, it feels like this is not the first time Yoav, I'm sure it isn't because I haven't read the whole text. Yoav did sort of underhand things for David. He was his loyal number 2 general in the army. Okay, so who would like to read?
I can't because mine won't get any larger. My pension won't get larger. I can't see it.
Okay, so hold on. Let me see. I gotta
I can read.
Okay, Penina.
Where are we? 18?
Yes.
Joab sent David a full account of the battle. He instructed the messenger, when you have finished giving the king this account of the battle, the king's anger may flare up, and he may ask you, why did you get so close to the city to fight? Didn't you know they could shoot arrows from the wall? Who killed Abimelech, son of Jerub-Beshet? Didn't a woman drop an apple? Is it a millstone or a milestone?
Millstone.
Millstone on him from the wall so that he died in Tebez? Why did you get so close to the wall? If he asks you this, and say to him, moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead.
So he's saying when David's going to kind of like fake being upset, or who knows, because they had to get close enough for Uriah to get killed. So he says, why did you get close? Because Abimelech died and this happened. And he says, well, Uriah the Hittite is dead. Just throw that in and he'll probably calm down, because this was the whole point.
That's what he wanted, yeah.
This is what he wanted. Okay, Penina, continue.
Then he died in Thebez.
No,
Why did you?
The
Oh,
messenger,
sorry. So
That's
the
okay.
messenger sent out, and when he arrived, he told David everything Joab had sent him to say. The messenger said to David, the men overpowered us and came out against us in the open, but we drove them back to the entrance of the city gate. Then the archers shot arrows at your servants from the wall, and some of the king's men died. Moreover, your servant Uriah the Hittite is dead.
right,
David,
okay, keep going.
David told the messenger, say this to Joab, don't let this upset you. The sword devours one as well as another. Press the attack against the city and destroy it. Say this to encourage Joab.
So there's this famous line, the sword devours one as well as the other. Oh, well, people die, it's war, you know what I mean? Not that anything was planned. Everybody, you can't help it. This happens, that happens.
Like
and,
the
you know,
spoil
it's-
of war, yeah.
Yeah, but it's all like a subtext of good job. Don't be
Yeah.
upset. That's okay. It happens. So it's all a subtext of good work. And now, you know, get in there and take care of business. Okay, so now I just want to read this one little section. So you might as well finish it, Penina, and then we're going to talk.
When Uriah's wife heard that her husband was dead, she mourned for him.
Okay, let's stop here. They don't call her by her name. She's
Right.
not a person
Right.
right now. She's this wife,
Yeah.
and they don't mention her name here at all. So it's sort of objectifying her now. You know what I mean? Okay, keep going.
After the time of mourning was over, David had her brought to his house, and she became his wife and bore him a son. But the thing David had done displeased the Lord.
Okay, so there's an interesting sentence there. First of all, she mourned. We don't know how long she mourned. How hard did she mourn or whatever? And then it's David had her brought to his house. So did she want to go? I guess she wanted to go, because if she was pregnant and everybody would know her husband didn't sleep with her, she would have been stoned as an adulteress or something. So David was, you know, bringing her to the house. Of course, the rabbis say they were madly in love. This was like, you know, incredible relationship, blah, blah, blah. We don't have any of that, but she was very beautiful and she was pregnant with his son. So he brought her to his house, and everybody, I imagine, could calculate Uriah had been in war for how long? He never went to his house. So whose child was it?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So, but nobody said anything, I guess. So that's sort of like the situation. And they think, okay, we sort of got away with it. But now we meet this prophet who Jonathan Kirsch said was a cranky old man. They don't ever tell us how old he is. But there's this idea now that we're starting to understand that apparently kings and priests were always at odds. The priests ran the temple, the king, you know, ran the government, and they were at odds. But the prophet could say anything. The prophet was the voice of morality of God, and the prophet could scold the king in a way a Kohen, a priest could not, or no one else could speak to the king.
Conscious of the people.
The conscious of the people, and they respected them, and they got messages, and they through dreams, they had dreams, they had the Urim were the priests, but apparently the prophets and there were schools of prophets, and you could study to be a prophet. And some of them were successful, some of them weren't, but they were the moral conscious. They held, I guess, the Torah. They held whatever the value system was. And when they came and told you things, that anybody else might, he just killed Uriah. But when Nathan shows up, he's like, uh-oh, I'm in trouble. So now we're going to hear this very, very famous story, this parable about the man with his little sheep. That's a very famous biblical story. And Doris, do you want to read? Let me make this bigger. Hold on. Let's get rid of this. Make this bigger.
I can continue.
Oh, all right, but let's give some other people.
Okay.
Doris, are you there?
You talking to me?
Yeah, you want to read?
Sure.
Hold on, I'm going to make it bigger. Hold on. Oh, sorry. Let me just do this one more time. Oh my God. I hate computers.
Bless you.
Wait for home.
Yeah, I hate when they type faster than you and then you got to re-edit because you don't type that
Okay.
word.
Okay,
Yeah.
here we go. All right.
Nathan,
Okay, so
rebuke-
this displeased God. God was not, now it's interesting, I just realized this. When he killed Uriah, it didn't displease God. When he took, there's no mention of it. He took Bathsheba and got her pregnant. It never says he displeased God. But when maybe not. We'll see. Maybe everything displeased God, but this was the last straw when the baby was born. So I take it back. Let's see. Okay, go ahead, Doris.
the Lord sent Nathan to David. When he came to him, he said, there were two men in a certain town, one rich and the other poor. The rich man had a very large number of sheep and cattle, but the poor man had nothing except one little ewe lamb he had bought. He raised it and grew up with him and his children. It shared his food and drank from his cup and even slept in his arms. It was like a daughter to him. Now a traveler came to the rich man, but the rich man refrained from taking one of his own sheep or cattle to prepare a meal for the traveler who had come to him. Instead, he took the ewe lamb that belonged to the poor man and prepared it for the one who had come to
Oh,
him.
no.
David burned with anger against the man and said to Nathan, as surely as the Lord lives, the man who did this must die. He must pay for that lamb 4 times over because he did such a thing and had no pity. Then Nathan said to David, you are the man. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says. I anointed you king over Israel, and I delivered you from the hand of Saul. I gave your master's house to you and your master's wives into your arms. I gave you all Israel and Judah. And if all this had been too little, I would have given you even more. Why did you despise the word of the Lord by doing what is evil in his eyes? You struck down Uriah the Hittite with the sword and took his wife to be your own. You killed him with the sword of the Ammonites. Now, therefore, the sword will never depart from your house, because you despised me and took the wife of Uriah the Hittite to be your own.
Wow. So that's
Wow.
a very famous thing. He says, you are the man, you took the one ewe lamb, and now your family is going to pay. So I was wrong. He was upset, but I guess it's the whole thing. What's curious is part of the punishment, which we'll talk about in a second. Again, okay, so it doesn't say this, but what do you think? Did Nathan know this or did everybody know it? I don't know. If Nathan knew it, is it because he had an inside, ear into the palace? Or do you think, actually, when you think about it, he had her brought, he had her taken, he had, in public view, servants, think of a palace, there's just servants everywhere. People were watching this, I guess, and they all knew the story. And I guess that's how Nathan knew it too. I don't think he had that through prophecy or something. Does anybody have any thoughts about that at all? I'm just reflecting. No. Okay.
I think the people did know, because gossip travels pretty quickly.
I think you're right. I think they did know. I think you're right. Or certainly the palace knew and Nathan heard or what's going on.
Hard to keep that a secret, I guess.
I think you're right. Okay, so this is very, I don't know. Let's talk about this for a minute. What is the punishment to David? Hold on, let me just finish this whole section. I'm just gonna make this all bigger so that we can finish it, this part. Because it's pretty. Hold on. Okay. All right. So who has not read, who would like to read? Oh, okay. Can you see it, Donna, or not? No.
No, you have to enlarge it for me and I can
It's
read.
really a lot. Oh, how about Risa?
I can
Yeah,
read it.
Risa, you read.
Okay, hold on. Let me get this out of here. Hold on.
It's not. I was working before, but.
Okay, go ahead.
This is what the Lord says. Whoops.
I'm sorry, hold on. Okay.
This is what the Lord says. Out of your own household, I am going to bring calamity on you. Before your very eyes, I will take your wives and give them to one who is close to you, and he will sleep with your wives in broad daylight. You did it in secret, but I will do this thing in broad daylight before all Israel.
Oh, boy.
Then David said to Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. Nathan replied, the Lord has taken away your sin. You are not going to die. But because of doing this, you have shown utter contempt for the Lord. The son born to you will die. After Nathan had gone home, the Lord struck the child that Uriah's wife had born to David, and he became ill. He must be David. David pleaded with God for the child. He fasted and spent the nights lying in sackcloth on the ground. The elders of his household stood beside him to get him up from the ground, but he refused, and he would not eat any food with them. On the seventh day, the child died. David's attendants were afraid to tell him that the child was dead, for they thought while the child was still living, he wouldn't listen to us when we spoke to him. How can we now tell him the child is dead? He may do something desperate. David noticed that his attendants were whispering among themselves, and he realized the child was dead. Is the child dead? He asked. Yes, they replied, he is dead. Then David got up from the ground. After he had washed, put on lotions, and changed his clothes, he went into the house of the Lord and worshiped. Then he went to his own house, and at his request, they served him food, and he ate. His attendants asked him, why are you acting this way? While the child was alive, you fasted and wept. But now that the child is dead, you get up and eat? He answered, while the child was still alive, I fasted and wept. I thought, who knows? The Lord may be gracious to me and let the child live. But now that he is dead, why should I go on fasting? Can I bring him back again? I will go to him, but he will not return to me.
Wow. Okay, stop share.
Nasty.
All right, that's an amazing thing. First of all, what do you think about this idea of punishing a man by having his wife says somebody else is going to take all your women and your child is going to die, but you're going to live? What do we think about that as a punishment? Do you think
He has to suffer, and he's suffering in a way in which he sinned. It's like divine retribution too. He sinned by taking other people's wives, and then other people are going to take his wives as concubines and all that. And I think later on we read that once, that they're on the roof on top of it. So
we're going to read about that later.
Yeah, and so they're humiliated, and he's going to have there'll be his household will be wrecked by his sons. Not only this son, but others in the future who will.
But to kill the baby, as
I don't know.
But that's
The baby was born out of sin. And yes, you can say, a mamzer or something like that, but I think it was a pretty heavy sin, as we've just been looking at. It was it included coveting and the death of her husband. So that and adultery, that's 3 commands right there that he violated. So And
I like high fidelity. I don't like
and
infidelity.
it's for the soul. Oh, no, actually, the soul enters at birth, but,
Well,
yeah,
they didn't, at that point, they didn't have that theology, but
no, they
okay,
didn't, but he did have more sons and,
well, okay. Yes, he did. A Cindy?
I always see so many parallels because this reminds me of the plagues, where it was the killing of the firstborn son that really got Pharaoh to give in. So it punished the father by killing the son.
That's a good point. Yeah, Panina?
Okay, I'm thrown off a little bit. I think the saying, En mukdam umeuchar b'Torah, there is no late and early in the Torah. The person who wrote that event or the book, who was in charge of writing, already knew all the circumstances.
Right.
So it all depends on the writer of when how he presents this whole thing. And we know that, yes, his sons did die. Avshalom got killed, Amnon got killed, Avshalom killed him, and here is this boy. So whoever wrote it already knew what happened. So it included in the story to
What
maybe glamorize the part of the prophet or whatever it is. Or I think it's actually to prioritize God, the one God that will punish them. So
Right.
to make this the important part.
Right. That God, that you can't sin
Escape.
so egregiously without repercussions.
Exactly.
Kind
It's to show that the greatness of God, the authority, the singularity, the
Now-
punishment. Yeah.
I read something else that I thought was really interesting, was that David and Jonathan Kirsch, I have to give him credit, talks about this new idea about God, which is that I prayed to God, it didn't work, I don't blame God. He went in after the baby died and worshiped. He went and gave a sacrifice or whatever of penitence or or whatever. But it's not like people today, oh, this happened, I don't believe in God. Because somebody died, that's it. How could God let that happen? Jonathan Kerr says he had a very sort of modern understanding that you get punished, you could pray, but it doesn't mean you're going to get what you want. And if you don't, okay, I accept it, and I continue to believe in God and worship God and honor God, which was, the way he said, well, I hoped, that's why I fasted, that's why I prayed, that the baby would be spared. But now that God has said no, okay, I'm going to get up and eat and continue to live and go forward the best I can. So that's, in there, an interesting point of view, that as opposed to the gods are punishing you and I'm done or something. So I found that interesting. Panina?
We have to remember that all the stories are included in a Tanakh. The Tanakh is a book about religion.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it was never really written or wasn't included. Why did they include the prophets if it was only nothing? There was something that they tried, the message. What was the message in including them? Again, the authority of God, the greatness of God, or whatever, that He's in charge of all the things that will happen, warnings and all this stuff. It's all given in the hands of God.
Yes.
Otherwise, the books, I attended a meeting about the book of Isaiah just for a little bit. And I heard a few times somebody said, the book is it's not about a religion. It's not about a religion. We are reading it as poetry. We are reading it as
but that wasn't the intention. I know, but we're
the
going off the
idea
topic.
is if it was included in this section, in the Torah Nevi'im Ktuvim, it's a part of the Nevi'im, then we have to understand that it's included there and it is a part of the religion. It is a part of the message of the Judaism. So we cannot say no, it's just
no, we're not saying that.
Well, it's not just literature. Never.
Okay, but we're not even talking about that. We're talking more about this way of having a relationship with God that David has. And also it's interesting, there's no mention of Bathsheba's grief of losing her child. There's no connection to that. She's kind of disappeared for now. And next time we meet, it's going to be when David's old and it's time to choose David's successor. And then there's two more things, and what we learn about her, and I want you to, we'll look next time. Did she grow, or is that who she always was? Did she change? Because she becomes Solomon, they say, his greatest advisor was his mother. And we're going to look at her and think, did she mature, or was she always this wise? Did she know what she was doing, or something like that? Also, we'll talk about this again, but there was actually a word for the mother of the king. It's called the Gevira, which I learned, and it's comes from the word Gibor, which means brave, or strong, a hero or something, strong. And Gever is man, a strong man, and Gevira is considered the queen mother. And in the book of Kings, the kings are known by the son of their mother, not their father, because like one father, like David, had multiple children. So the children were known by the so-and-so son of, and it was the mother. And so Bathsheba was the first Gevira, the first queen mother, because we don't even know about David's mother or Saul's mother. We never hear about them at all. And it was a very powerful position in the ancient world, which I always thought, oh, I'd love to have written like a paper or a dissertation on it, but I don't know how much information there is on the Gevira, but it's a really interesting idea.
How many more
My
children?
boyfriend
Did
calls
they
me
have more
queen.
children? Did David and Bathsheba have more children, or just
Yes,
that
they
one?
had King Solomon.
King Solomon, who
Their child, King
built the
Yes.
temple.
Solomon.
Yeah. So we'll read about that next week. So I want to
I'm sorry.
wish you happy Purim. I hope you'll
Happy
come
Yes,
to Purim.
Thank
Purim.
See you
Come on
Sunday.
Happy
I'll
Purim.
be
Thank
there.
you.
everybody.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I love you.
Great.
My boyfriend called me queen. Love you. Bye. 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 So wonderful to see everybody. Shalom. See you later.
Shalom.
See ya.
Thank you.
Thank you.